Hi, I'm Angel Davis, and you are listening to Verbally Naked, a podcast devoted to the enhancement of relationships, or so we hope. I'm here with my guy, Peter Hermes. We are in our third season. She's having a baby, and
And he's introspective,
yes,
which is this episode.
he's introspective. So this episode, we wanted to talk about something that we hadn't really. I blog for some of my listeners who know, but I haven't really gone into super great detail about the miscarriage we had in 2015. And it just seemed like this was a good time to talk about that. I don't know why we're pregnant right now, but
Right.
but it seemed like I'm ready to share about that experience, and so are you.
Yeah, it'll be cathartic.
It better be. So starting from the beginning, I wasn't sure I wanted a child. Reason why this is called Verbally Naked, this podcast, is because from the beginning, when Peter and I were going down the road of our feelings for each other changing, are they growing into something different? I was very much like, hey, I'm with what I went through with Brad and being a widow. And I have a child. I don't have time to play games. I don't have time to do the whole, what are we doing, dating thing that people sort of do in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need to know where your head's at, and you need to know where mine's at. And here's what I want and expect. And you did the same. So we talked about, you asked me early on, would you ever consider having another child? And I was like, I don't see that happening.
Right.
Yeah. As many people know, I didn't plan on having Brian. Brad and I didn't plan on having Brian. My daughter, the never-ending story. But after he passed away, the love I had for her was even more intense, and I just couldn't imagine. I just kind of wanted it to be her. I don't know why.
Mm.
But I was like, I just, want it to be her. And then I was, I still was sort of reeling from all that had happened, that I didn't really separate where my life was heading and what was happening between you and I with kind of the lifestyle I had with Brad. So, but eventually,
Right. Well, when you told me that you didn't think it was going to happen again, I was in the mindset that my child rearing or my child siring days were behind me anyway. That either I had missed the boat on it or that it just wasn't going to happen for me. And having Brian, having a kid that wasn't necessarily biologically mine, was certainly sufficient. Like, it was the best thing, you coming into my life, obviously, but Brian, I think that scratched that having a kid itch well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was resigned to the fact that it was just going to be the three of us, and that was A-okay. And I remember you had talked to somebody, and they predicted that you had a baby, that you were going to have a baby.
Yeah.
And they had predicted that back in 2000,
Well, actually, no. That initial conversation, he predicted you.
He predicted that I would be there. I would show up.
Well, that I was going
or
to
somebody.
Yeah, I mean, because you said, me coming into your life. I've been in your life, but our life developing the way that it did was certainly unexpected, but appreciated by you. Yeah, he predicted that I was going to find someone way sooner than I ever expected. And at that time, he said children were off the table. And I was like, good.
Oh, is that right?
It was later that he was like, I know you don't want to hear this, but I see
like a year later.
I see it. Yeah, I see a baby in your future.
Right. So we had never really planned on it. This wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
we had these conversations before we were even engaged. This is back in the
like I said, this is when we were literally just like, let's lay it all out on the table. Right. I was like, I can't lose any more of.
Right.
You know, I can't go through anything. I can't have any more heartache. Like, I need to know where your head's at. What do you want? What are your intentions? Because I have a child to raise now by myself.
So we talked through all of that.
Yeah, we did.
We were in a good place, and we were on the same page. And Thanksgiving 2015 was coming up, and I was dead set on asking her to marry me. And I was in my own headspace, and because it was so soon after Brad that I didn't know if this was the right time, if this was, and I was literally asking. I was taking straw poll. I was just polling friends, like, I have a friend who is this inappropriate? Is this? And everybody said, no, this is, because I was really concerned that it was just inappropriate. And so when I asked a few people, they were like, it's not inappropriate. And so my plan was, we're going to be going back to Oklahoma at Thanksgiving, and I will pop the question and see where that goes. And
right before we left, we had a conversation. We were being careful, but also sometimes not, in terms of preventing a child. And at some point, you just flat out said, what are we doing? Are we considering this? Because if not, then, we should probably look towards doing something permanently about not having children. And I was like, at that point where we were in our relationship, we were here in California, and I just realized, our life is totally different. And I thought, well, what if? And I said, let's consider it.
Yeah, and I was certainly open to it. Like I said, I was. Yeah. I had, I was under the impression that the ship had sailed. Mm-hmm. But then when it was maybe a possibility, and then I started kind of getting a little bit excited, like, yeah, I could,
I could do this.
I could maybe do this. We'll see.
So that's like right before we leave to go home for Thanksgiving.
So we go home. And one thing leads to another, and I propose. And
yes, that Tuesday of Thanksgiving week.
This is on Tuesday.
He proposes. We have Thanksgiving.
We do Thanksgiving on Thursday.
Was a wonderful blend. That was our first blend of Brad's mother and stepfather came.
My mother was still alive.
Yes, your mom, your parents were there. We had it at actually Peter's parents' house, and my mom was there. And it was this wonderful blend of all of our families and everything that represented, our life and how we came together.
Right.
And it was really beautiful. It was a really wonderful Thanksgiving. But something didn't show up that day. And on Saturday I take a test, because I am, not to be too open with you, but audience, but I'm very punctual.
She's very regular. It's such a clock to it.
Yep. So Saturday, I'm like, I'm going to take a test, because this is kind of weird.
It was like 3 or 4 days.
Thanksgiving was Thursday. I mean, I took a test on Saturday, and lo and behold,
on Saturday
we found out.
I get a phone call. I was on the way with my dad somewhere to the store or something, and I get a phone call that, hey, guess what? We're pregnant.
Yeah, I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he was like,
and since my dad was sitting next to me in the car, I just immediately blurted it out. Hey, we're pregnant.
No, you didn't.
Oh, I didn't?
No.
I thought that he was
your
there.
Dad
my
and
memory's terrible. So this will happen a lot.
You do know that I'm your wife. Do you remember my name?
Oh my gosh. Yes, of course I do, Angela.
You were going to take the rental car back because we were.
Okay, that's
your dad felt like, why do we need it? We have 2 cars.
He was following me or something.
Yeah, so he was following you. Okay. And we had a conversation, and you were like, well, I'll talk to you when I get back.
Yeah.
So we, since we were there, and I think just kind of with your mom and everything that was going on, we decide, hey, we just found out we're pregnant. We tell your parents and my mom.
We must have been 4 weeks, if that, pregnant.
Yeah, maybe 5.
Just whenever you find out.
Mm-hmm. And so probably about 4.5. And
so we're excited and we're.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, your mom teared up and she's like, John! She runs in the kitchen and she's like, John, we're pregnant. And it just, anyway, it's a tough moment to think about.
So, anyway, we find out we're pregnant and everybody is excited and happy and then we go back to California.
Yeah, so we go home, and 2 weeks later,
we go into the doctor.
Unexpectedly bleeding.
And she starts, like, not just what's known as spotting, but she's bleeding.
Yeah, and I had
fresh, new blood.
I had bleeding with Brian, implantation bleeding, so I knew what that looked like and the difference. And
this was not good bleeding.
It was not, and I was very concerned.
So
and
immediately go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm. But because it was so early.
They wanted to test the levels in the blood or something. They wanted to test the hormones.
I had some cysts going on, and that's very common with me. And so because, the fetus is so small in the beginning, my doctor was like, sometimes we can't see right away, and you've got some like fibroids or something going on, and sometimes they hide behind that. And so he's like, definitively, we need to do blood tests for the next few days. And if your numbers are going up, your hormone levels and whatever are going up, then we know this is developing.
Yeah.
If they don't or decline,
fetus in there, and
then we know that you're in the process of terminating this pregnancy. So we had to wait a week of me spotting or bleeding. And I wasn't necessarily bleeding all the time.
No.
But it was like.
No, like you were having your period, basically.
Well.
Which, when
it
you
was
get
like
pregnant, that stuff stops.
Well, sure. But it was like, it was off and on, which is it was so confusing. It was like we didn't know what was happening. And it was emotionally grueling. Because we had to wait, and it was just so eventually
we had to go in and get a sonogram.
We get a sonogram, and it's determined that there's no viable fetus anymore.
They found a cyst.
They found like the sac, I guess, if you will, or like
where
the remnants of where a baby was. And we were leaving to go out of town like 5 days later to go back to Oklahoma for Christmas. And
so it was official.
Yeah.
She had miscarried.
I was in the process of miscarrying.
In the process, but it doesn't end there. If you don't know anything about miscarriages, it doesn't end there. You find that out, but then your body has to flush. Your body can't keep all that stuff in there.
Yeah, you can do a D&C, which my doctor preferred, but because we were leaving so quickly after this appointment,
a D&C would be surgery, basically.
Yeah,
and it's an operation.
It's a process,
right? Where they actually do something. We couldn't do that, so she had to do
because the timing of everything. The doctor couldn't schedule it that quickly.
She had to do a pill that basically induces labor.
And because
we didn't know what any of that meant, and she did it, and it was horrible.
It was awful.
It was horrible. It was a 3-week process.
It
seemed like it took forever.
No, it was months.
Was it months?
It was 3 months.
It was horrible.
That I bled every single day. But that's how long it took for my body to regulate itself.
3 months.
And
it was, and I don't know, all this time, it's just this realization that, it was a tough time, and it was literally bringing in one of the worst years. This is all the beginning of 2016,
which
and
was
2016 was a garbage year.
It was terrible.
Every bad thing that we started out with a miscarriage, followed by
we got home, and here's the timeline. We got home from Christmas to a cat who had got to the point where he was ailing. We had to put him down like the week we got back.
Lucky.
Yeah. And then And then as things are waning and it's looking more like the bleeding is kind of waning and maybe we're kind of getting back to a normal pattern, my father suddenly just died. Just had a massive stroke and died. And we had to go back home.
We had to go to the funeral, of course.
We go to the funeral, and then we find out that your mom has been given a timeline.
My mother put herself in hospice. She was given information.
Well, that was later, but while we were there at the funeral, we went to visit your parents because we were so close.
Oh, did they give her 6 months or something?
And they gave her, we thought we had till the end of about Thanksgiving of that same year.
6 to 8 months to live.
Yeah, right.
So we had that to deal with. And, when we went back for your dad's funeral, there was plenty of drama there. I mean, it was
a mess. And
everything was messy.
Yeah.
It was there was nothing neat about 2016.
No.
So we get back from the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
What happened next? I mean.
So the next thing would have been your mother.
My mother passed in June. We got a new cat.
That was later.
Was that later?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
That was the next year. But.
Okay, sorry.
But like your mom, like
my mother passed.
We go home for the summer, and the next day your mother passes away. She actually passes away like in the middle of the night, going into the second day of us being there.
She was literally waiting for us to get off the plane so she could see us, and she did, and then in the morning.
Yeah.
So we had her funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And then Angel's best friend's father passed away a week later.
Yeah.
So we had to go, we went to that funeral, and then
my grandmother passed away.
Her father's mother.
Yeah. It was a mess.
It was just a crazy year.
In between all of that, when we had gone back to the doctor after I'm sort of regulated and everything and we can try again, we get the news that I have low egg reserve, and
right.
Basically that affects the quality of the eggs. They cannot determine how viable my eggs were. And so my doctor specifically said, I have confidence you will get pregnant again and that you can. What I don't and cannot predict for you is that whether or not that egg will go to term.
Right. So the doctors basically didn't give us a really good prognosis.
He didn't. We have a great doctor. He was like, I want you to he's like, do it. Do whatever you want to do.
He was like, life finds a way.
He was not.
And on top of you, I had been, over the last couple of years, I had myself tested, and I've been up and, I've gotten tests back where they're like, you have a certain thing going on with your situation that's not looking good.
Right.
But
you quit smoking.
There were some lifestyle changes that I implemented, and then I would take the test again, and like, oh, you seem normal now. Yeah. So it's just like, who knows what's going to happen. And so with all of that, and the doctor saying it's not looking, it's not impossible, but
it's not impossible. But
I think the idea was you may miscarry.
Yes,
again
his concern was. Even though the miscarriage, he was like, I mean, it's totally normal at the time that the miscarriage happened. That is around the time in terms of weeks being pregnant that it's very common that if a miscarriage is going to happen, it happens then. So there was nothing that caused it. Mm-hmm. It just did. But he was concerned that my age, the low egg reserve, that the probability of doing it again, miscarrying again, was high. So, he left it up to us. What do we want to do? He definitely said, hey, your chances of doing, getting help to get pregnant, he was like, they will not go up.
Yeah, because,
don't waste your money.
Some people go and do in vitro and spend their life savings.
Yeah. And he said, don't waste your money.
He was like, no.
Your chances are the exact same. And so if I were you, I would
if you want to flush money down the toilet, go ahead and try.
Yeah, he was like, I would stick to the good old cuddle up method and just try and relax and have a good time, guys. So we go home and we decide, what are we going to do? And we draw a line in the sand, you and I.
Mm-hmm. This is what time, what date? Where are we here? We're in 2016.
We pretty much started trying probably by April of 2016, even though we were going through ups and downs emotionally with what was happening personally outside of ourselves with our parents and all of those things.
And we were really trying.
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening. Like a year went by.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's talk about the line in the sand we drew. We didn't want to go through the miscarriage. It was just emotionally heartbreaking. And
we agreed.
And we decided that
another miscarriage,
we certainly won't try again. If we get pregnant and we have another miscarriage, we're done. And then also, I was about to turn 40.
Right. And your 40th birthday, which was just this January.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was getting closer to...
We've had about a year and a half window. If we were going to make it happen, we had a year and a half to get it. And it took about that.
Yeah.
We tried from April to October, April to April to October.
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening, and it was just like, what's going on? Was it a fluke that we got pregnant in the first place? Is this going to happen? Because I had talked to a friend who has kids who said that they had a miscarriage, but then immediately got pregnant, within a month after that. And I was like, well, that should happen for us, right? Nothing.
And it doesn't. And that's the thing. I mean, you read literature, and in your mind, that it is up to your body, and there's a lot of things, and everybody's different. And I knew that, and you knew that, but it was still just it's hard not to be hopeful.
Right.
And we were, it wasn't easy. We were emotionally drained with everything else that was happening with us. It was difficult to then also be actively trying to get pregnant. And then every month, and I did write this, and every month, trying not to be hopeful, just trying to go through your day. But, every time I would have, my period, it was devastating. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that we were out of town. And I also had a lot of guilty feelings. I don't know how you worked through the miscarriage, but I had a lot of guilt because it felt like, well, for so long I don't want him. I don't want another kid. I don't know. And I was so wishy-washy that it felt like, did the baby, and I know this wasn't logical, but emotionally you feel like, did it terminate because I was so undecided and I wasn't, maybe I wasn't fit or whatever. And there was just a lot of guilt. And I actually talked to one of my friends who had a miscarriage during, not at the same time, but she knew all the emotions that I was feeling. It was one of the first things she said to me was, don't you dare feel guilty about, because she knew, I know you weren't sure that you wanted one, and then, whatever. And she's like, don't you dare go down that route. And it's like, she just knew. And I think because she had experienced something very similar. So I just remember that, and I was really meditating and really trying to keep relaxed, and you were doing everything you could.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have any guilt. I just was like, man, this is a bummer. We had picked out names. I mean, we were really wanting and expecting it to happen, and then when it didn't, and the way we were kind of told that it didn't wasn't a very good situation.
She wasn't great, the sonogram lady.
Yeah, we went in, the sonogram person had no bedside manner.
She didn't.
Just was like, what are you here? There's nothing here. And you're just like, oh, thanks for letting us know that we've had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
But just like, why are you even... So anyway, it just wasn't a very good situation.
It wasn't.
And we had picked out some names, and
I know
it was
tough for you too, because you initially weren't exactly thrilled about telling everybody so soon. And for me, the only experience I had was with Brian, and because Brad and I were definitely never supposed to have children, or were expecting to. It was a big deal when we got pregnant. So it was just like, oh my God, y'all, we don't know what we're doing. We need all the help we can. We're pregnant. Like, this is crazy. So we shared that from the beginning. And of course, we all know how that pregnancy and that child turned out. So for me, it was just like, whatever. And I just thought, well, if I were to be pregnant and then like something happened and then I have to tell my mom or something later, she would be so devastated that she didn't know. It would be shocking to her. And However, we later changed that, but I know that was tough for you too, because you didn't initially want to say right away, and we did, and then this baby goes away, and
well, I was sad. A lot of why I was sad was because I was really wanting to give my mother
I know
a grandchild. We knew that.
Oh, she wanted it so bad.
We knew that
she adored
wasn't
Brian.
long, for the world. I don't think, and at Thanksgiving, she didn't have that prognosis.
No.
That it was going to happen sooner than later. And
no.
So she had a bucket list that she was checking off. She wanted to make it to 70, which she wasn't able to do, but there were certain things that she was able to check off. And my bucket list for her was to give her, we had given her Brian.
Which, I mean,
and she took to Brian.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. And
she was the best grandmother. And I mean, that also broke my heart for Brian, because
she didn't get it. I mean, she got a chance to know her for.
She did, but she was just Susan was so great with her that it just broke my heart that the two of them lost that so early on. I mean, she was just. She was destined to be a grandma.
And I so wanted to give her that.
Yeah.
And to find out basically in December, January, and then to have to tell her that that grandchild that we told you that we were going to have, we're not going to have. And then for her to pass away.
I know. And we were at least
6 months later.
We wanted at least to, if we could just be pregnant.
Yeah.
And tell her, before she died that.
So she wasn't able to live long enough to see us get married.
No.
Or have a baby, which we have since done. So hopefully she's
checking off the bucket list from heaven.
She's checking it out.
Well, so for me to get past the miscarriage, I decided one day, we were out of town and I had meditated that morning, and I don't know, something just said, why don't you write about it? And so I started writing as a purge, and it turned into this letter to this soul. Because there's so many reasons why, people miscarriage, and but it's common. It's more common in the beginning than not. And, so I start writing to this soul because I thought, what if it had less to do with, my wishy-washiness, but what if somebody else, some other family or some other woman's life would just drastically change for the better if this soul would go to her or to them? Or what if there was just something else that it needed to do that was more worthy than whatever? So I start writing that and just saying how, if that was the case, how proud I was. So hard. But how proud I was of the fact that if that's what it needed to do, that it did it. Mm-hmm. And that I would always be grateful that it came to me at all. Because with both my children, I would talk to them in the very beginning and say, if it's meant to be, this is the kind of family we have. And there are expectations for the kind of person that you will be as you grow into this family, because we have, these morals, and you have this kind of sister, and whatever, and even with Brian, when I was like, this is the kind of parents you have, and I was just always like, so if it's meant to be and this all works out, then by all means, I'm the mom for you, and this is the body for you, and I'll do everything I can to get you through this process. So I just was ever, and I got a piece from it, from doing that letter, and just feeling like, it did what it needed to do, and I would just wished it well, and hoped that if for some reason, it found that we were whatever, in a better position, or it decided that we were indeed the family for it, that it would return to us.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
in October of last year,
Yeah.
Yeah, we find out we're pregnant.
We found out that all of the hard work that we had put in over like a year and a half.
And I have to give some credit to this book that I read called You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. When I was, after I wrote that letter and I was meditating, because I really realized when I was reading that all the trying we were doing, I was still living into what our doctor told us that day, which is, you have low egg reserve.
Mm-hmm.
You might get pregnant. You'll probably miscarry again. This may not be in the cards for you.
Right.
And so I realized that I was still living into that no matter how much we were trying and no matter how whatever. And I needed to shift that. Even if we didn't get pregnant, I just needed to shift that. So I started reading this book and I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I'm not at all in the right mind space for this. And I did a lot of meditation work on shifting that. And so for me, yeah, I absolutely accredit that book to helping this situation. But no matter, here we are.
Yeah. We're 3 months away from, fingers crossed.
Right.
Yeah, we are. The miscarriage, really taught us just to be cautious, I guess. Like we have treated this pregnancy with, like once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah, kid gloves, I guess.
Yeah, just when we found out, we were like, we're not telling anybody until that kid's born. Well, obviously, we didn't stick to that.
No, you wanted to wait until the first trimester was over.
We definitely wanted to wait until, what was
it,
like week 14 or 15? I don't know what the trimesters. But
they're by threes, baby.
Weeks.
Well, that would have been 12 weeks.
All right. Anyway, we waited, and then we only told certain people, and then we waited, and then we told certain people, and then we made it public. And we have just been very cautious with this pregnancy, just because we have been there. We've been down this road, and it's no fun when it doesn't happen. And so we're just doing everything we can to make sure that that this boy that is growing inside of her gets what he needs. And we talk to him and we cuddle and we press on him and he presses back sometimes. And Brian is probably more excited about meeting her brother than we are. She's
very ready.
She's ready.
And she's very
to teach this kid she can't wait to teach him everything from how to yo-yo to how to behave. Like, it's crazy. This is her project. This is going to be her little project, and we are more than happy. And I keep telling her it's going to be that first year is going to be not a lot. You're not going to be able. You're going to be probably 10 years old when you're going to be able to start teaching this kid anything.
Well, I mean, babies learn from early on, but for her to see real progress, it'll be later. But
she's excited, and we're excited for her.
And we're excited for us. And this isn't an easy subject, and I think miscarriage is a very private thing for a lot of people. So I don't think a lot of people really talk about it and all the emotions that come with it. But we wanted to be very candid about it and just kind of talk about this process and how we got to where we are right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to say we needed to go through that by any means, but you live your life and you look back and you try not to have regrets. And this is not something that we chose. So you just roll. Like what do we always tell Brian? You gotta sometimes life. You just gotta roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not fun, and you just gotta roll with it. And we had to roll with it, and we came out on the other side.
So yeah.
So far, so good.
I mean, I know it's terrible. We should stop living into that.
We are still
But
very.
We're just cautious. I mean, and that's something that is hard. Yeah. It's a little bit challenging. We are very excited. We're very happy. But it is hard to not have a little bit of caution with everything. But we're still living our lives. We have not altered anything. I work out and.
Oh yeah, you're actually booking more gigs and getting more acting opportunities because you're pregnant.
Because I'm pregnant.
They want real pregnant women, so
yeah,
take it for what it is.
Yeah, but so 3 more months.
3 more months, and then we have a whole set of new concerns and issues. You think we're worried now, and cautious.
We're just trying to get them on the outside so that then we can really freak out. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And then there's all kinds of. So we're gonna roll with it.
Crazy things.
That's before we had a conversation at the beginning of this when we found out we were pregnant this time that we were going to take it one day at a time. Mm-hmm. We're not going to look too far into the future, so we're going to do what we need to do today so that tomorrow will come. And so once the baby gets here, we will take that day by day.
Exactly. It definitely helped us and is helping us live more in the present.
Absolutely.
And that's really important, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm Angel Davis.
And I'm Peter Hermes.
You've been listening to Verbally Naked, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. And as always, live big.